right, let's go.
Okay, I know we've gained quite a few attendees in the last couple minutes, so we're not starting right on time because we wanted to give everybody an opportunity to join. Welcome everyone. Before we get started today, we want to introduce ourselves. This will be the 4 national officers doing this town hall. I'm Julie Hedrick. I'm the APFA National President.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Larry Salas, APFA National Vice President.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being on today. I'm Josh Black. I'm the APFA National Secretary.
And I'm Eric Harris. I'm your APFA National Treasurer.
All right, let's get started. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us today. We're going to present a lot of information to you for you to make an informed vote on the dues restructure, the restructuring of our NNRF fund, which is our negotiations fund, and a dues savings for those who would like to pay all their union dues in one payment per year. We will talk a lot about the operating costs throughout this presentation. Because our operating costs have steadily risen due to several factors. Of course, the TA being probably the biggest factor. So we're going to explain to you what the operating costs are for the APFA. First, hourly wages paid by you for union representatives have significantly increased. Back in 2001, when the last dues increase was approved, the top hourly pay back then was $45.27, and that was at 15 years. Today, the top hourly wage is at 13 years, and it is $82.24. This is an 81% increase in top out wages since 2001, when the last dues increase was, while our dues has remained the same since that time frame.
Additionally, APFA has expanded to better serve our members. This includes the establishment of a legal department, a data team, a technology team, a revamped website, and more advanced systems. There's also been a greater participation in national labor events, increasing our presence in the labor movement, and an increase in training opportunities for our union representatives.
Over the past 5 years, APFA has weathered a financial crisis in 2019, which forced our union to take a really hard look at how our union operates and to get our books in order. And after that, the union faced and navigated a pandemic, furloughs and recalls, base closures, and flight attendant displacements. But with our members' support, with your support, and the solidarity we have with other unions, we were able to ensure our members remain connected to their pay and their benefits, and consequently, we were able to minimize the impact the pandemic had on our industry. On the heels of that, we went to war with American Airlines management in order to win an industry-leading contract. Julie, you're on mute.
So sorry. I was afraid I was the one causing the background noise. I guess I don't have to go on mute, right, Josh?
Correct.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, before we asking you for a dues restructure, we had to make sure your union dollars were efficiently being spent. Part of this presentation will focus on the reform we have put in place to address this.
I think I'm up next here. So the landscape has changed a lot since the last time we proposed a dues increase, and American entered bankruptcy, followed by a merger with US Airways. We saw an increase to wages after the JCBA, and all these events created a significant financial and organizational uncertainty, delaying the conversation about dues adjustments.
I think it's me, you guys. So sorry. I got on the wrong page already, right off the bat. Okay. And I'm really sorry. Over the last, that's you, Josh. Why isn't it taking us so long to revisit the dues adjustment? The last dues increase was in 2001. In 2009, a dues increase was proposed and sent to the members for a vote. However, at that time, members had experienced wage reductions in 2003, and we were still waiting for a new contract with industry-leading wages. The proposed increase at that time was rejected.
And that's where I added my piece right there about the reason why the dues restructuring at that point didn't pass.
And one thing today, we're going to walk through how APFA works and provides you with information to make an informed vote, because this is your union. We're here to represent you in many different ways. So a couple of those, for example, if you have an issue that requires base representation to assist you at a meeting, we have base representatives at all 10 of our bases. We hold the company accountable for the contract that was hard negotiated through our grievance procedure. We have a full department here at APFA headquarters that does that. In order to negotiate the best contracts we can for the 28,000 members we represent, we have a very strong bargaining negotiating committee that focuses on that. We provide you with support on the national level. We have reps that can help you with your day-to-day issues with things such as the contract and scheduling issues that we face on the line. Health, safety, our hotels that we stay at, and IODs, because injuries happen on the job. And we also worked really hard over the past few years to provide a lot of information for you on the APFA website to help you perform your job and find resources while you're at work.
So this is a dues restructure, as well as a restructure for the fund that pays for negotiations. The website will be updated with all this information, and you'll also receive a booklet in the mail. And in addition to that, we'll have a call center to answer questions, and we will be in the airports to answer any questions you may have.
We want you to be an informed voter before placing your vote. Your decision will impact the future of this union. Before we start on our presentation, Josh is going to walk you through the website and where you can find all the information.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see. We have a page that's going to launch today after the hotline is over, or after the town hall is over. We'll have a hotline go out, and let's see where. Okay, so I'll share my screen. All right, so the website that you'll be visiting is apfa.org/dues restructure. We have a full website here that has all information that's important. We're going to go over this information in further detail in the presentation, but just high level, we have the ballot measures that our members that you'll be able to vote on. We have lots of information on how our dues are structured, where our dues currently go and how they're allocated. We walk through financial reform and our dues arrears recovery initiatives that we've taken over the past few years, and then pages for all three of the ballots, again, that we'll go through. Voting will be online. It'll be on this web page, just like we've done for the strike authorization vote and the tentative agreement. You'll be able to vote directly through this website after logging in. And as I indicated, we've got a lot of information on this page that will be helpful in ensuring that you're an informed voter. All right, so we'll get back on to the presentation. Okay, so as we indicated, financial reform has been a huge priority for our organization and ensuring that we are spending our dues appropriately and properly. And so financial reform was a key part of that, ensuring we have guardrails in our policy manual that direct those funds appropriately and make sure there's misuse of those funds. So the board passed 7 resolutions in 2021. That was the first set of financial reform initiatives that took place. And all of that information can be found in the webpage. You can read more about what those initiatives were. In 2024, this year, we took 6 more financial reform initiatives, and those are also on the website as well that shares more information.
All right. Along with financial reform, transparency, as you know, has been really important to us. And we've been working really hard since we've been in office to make sure that the members have the transparency that they wanted. So before we contemplated coming to you for a dues restructure, we had to take a hard look at how we spend your hard-earned dollars.
Another area we had to look at was the dues arrears. In 2022, APFA began the process of recovering unpaid dues. This became a necessary step as many members had significant balances in arrears. These unpaid balances directly impact our ability to fund the critical programs, services, and resources that benefit all members. As the pandemic receded, dues arrears recovery began in September 2022, which was the first time in 8 years. Collecting these dues ensures that each member contributes their share to our collective strength. Section 35 of our CBA states that all APFA flight attendants are required to pay as a closed shop requirement under the Railway Labor Act, or as you all may know, the RLA.
And so over that period of time, over the past, since this started, it's been $1.5 million repaid to the membership in back dues.
Yes,
Yeah.
When we came into office in 2020, we saw that the dues arrears balance was $3 million that was owed to the membership. So we knew that we had to work on that and get the members' money back. It takes a lot of work to do that. We're sending out alert letters weekly in record numbers, but it's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And Eric, I don't know if you want to expand a little bit more on that. Just, we know it's been a while since APFA has focused on this, at least a couple of administrations, but also we have a staff that works at APFA that helps with this. So yes. I don't know if you want to expand it all on who does that.
Oh, yes. So we have staff members in our dues department and our membership department. They work collectively to ensure that, the membership department is making sure that member records are correct, but our dues department really is a crucial part of this union. And they are there to make sure that our dues are collected and accounted for. And they also process our Section 35 alert letters. And those alerts are what are sent to members in arrears who have had an arrears balance greater than 60 days. And those letters go out. They are the ones you've spoken to on the phone when you're making payment arrangements, or if you have questions about your dues. Those are staff members who are not flight attendants.
All right, so next slide, we talked about dues arrears recovery.
So part of the dues arrears recovery, if you look on this chart, you'll see we broke out how many members owed large balances. And one of the things that we noticed when we took office in 2020, we were staring at that $3 million balance. A large portion of it were from members who owed large amounts, who were not in a position to pay those amounts immediately or in full at the time. So your APFA Board of Directors passed a policy that implemented the payment arrangement program. And that payment arrangement program was available to any member with a balance of at least $82, which are 2 months worth of dues. And since that implementation, that was in June of 2023, right before the strike authorization vote, 122 of our members have utilized the payment arrangement program that totaled a balance of $139,222.
That's great.
Through that, not just these payment arrangements, but through the dues arrears process and our members just paying their dues, we've seen 90% of our members were eligible to vote in the strike authorization vote. and 94% of our members were eligible to vote in the TA vote this past September.
All right. So on the heels of financial reform, we also take a look at the union at how we spend our dues, make sure that we spend them more effectively, but also invest in things that are important to our membership. So a couple things on this slide I'll point out is the transparency in negotiations. We knew as an organization it was important for all of you to know exactly what was being bargained at the bargaining table with American Airlines. And part of that is ensuring we had the infrastructure at the union to provide that resource. That looks like updating the website, having communications, the CAT team, and the CAT team on here, on this slide, I want to touch on as well, was critical for successful negotiations as well. We had CAT members in all of the bases, leading our pickets that we had, taking care of all of those administrative things that come along with our pickets, ensuring that they were available in all of our bases to answer questions when the tentative agreement came out, and really just overall encouraging all of our members to be involved in negotiations. I mentioned earlier our website has been a huge focus for the past 5 years. We have more goals going forward that we'll talk about, but having resources on the website has been a huge investment for our membership.
Yes, in other areas that we've modernized and improved, our participation in labor notes and events like labor notes, I should say, which are labor events that happen across the country. We've increased our presence there and our participation, which makes sure that APFA is present in the labor movement and contributing. Other areas, the design and production of our APFA swag, like our pins, lanyards, t-shirts, which were all an integral part of our fight during negotiations. This helped our membership feel part of the union, and it also showed our union pride. It showed management that we all were on the same page.
Like the red
especially
shirts.
Many red shirts, the Bolo. When we rolled up on Robert at the State of the Airline several times, that was wearing our red shirt, that was us showing solidarity with our coworkers. And another area, we expanded our data department, which has allowed us to utilize data and better use data to fight this company, and as well as administering our contract. And it's also helped in our negotiations. Some of the charts and calculators you used on the website was due to our efforts of the data department. And our data department is also another department of staff members who are not flight attendants.
Hey, Eric, before you move on to another one, I want to talk about the data department, because in the past, we didn't have this. We didn't focus on making sure that we were getting our own data. All the data that we received all came from the company. So it's been really key in helping us with our flight attendants as far as fighting for certain things, that we have our own data. I'll use, there's various different meetings that we have with the company where making sure we have data is really important to holding them accountable.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this makes me think of one thing that we've done at the union too. We've modernized APFA headquarters, made bigger meeting spaces. Our flagship, or our Unity Base conference room is now, set up where we can do our board meetings there. And all of these changes that we've been able to make has saved us $45,000 a year on outside meeting space that we'd be paying for otherwise. Yeah.
We've also used that meeting space for trainings, right, for other events, union-related events. A lot of unions out there have union halls, right?
Yes.
And it's our version of a union hall for us to bring in, but we can get in probably about 70 people in there. Is that about right? I seated, I know it's less.
Probably a little more, but yeah, because the old one, yeah.
But a lot more than the old Unity pays that we used to have.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I want to say double, but I won't say that on the record.
And you know what? Maybe we can talk a little bit about, because that was probably the major change we made there. But really what we did is we changed the APFA headquarters into more a collaborative workspace than individual little offices or individual little cubicles. We modernized it because with COVID, it helped us to realize that really for us at APFA, if a lot of our reps can work at home and they can answer the calls, it saves us a lot of money, but it also, we actually are getting longer hours out of it. We've gotten a lot more out of the changes we've made. And so the building has become a collaborative workspace where people, when everybody comes to the building, we have now 4 meeting spaces, and it's worked quite well. It's hard to believe, it's hard to think about how we used to do it in the past. We used to have to rent hotel space when we had more than one large committee in the office. So we now have a larger negotiating room, right, for all the negotiators, that they all can meet there, up to 10 people. We have the VP conference room that they also can meet in there. That's probably up to 10, 12 people. Unity pays that we already talked about, and then now we have an additional meeting space. So all those modernizations have really helped APFA run much better.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about where our dues go.
So this chart or pie chart is, well, first of all, if you ever wondered where your $41 goes, I've been asked that question a lot when I'm talking to flight attendants and members on the phone. This chart breaks down exactly where it goes. I won't go into all of them because we're going to explain more in the presentation, but I did want to highlight the $4 that goes to the NNRF. And what the NNRF is the negotiations and negotiations related fund, which can only be utilized for negotiations related activity. This means that those $4 can't be used to provide services and programs to the membership. So that money's locked in as a savings. And like, as I said before, we'll go more into detail about that.
Speaking of pies, Thanksgiving this week, and I can't wait for my pie.
We had to get one of those in, right, Josh?
I knew he's gonna get a dad joke.
Let's see how many we end up with by the end of the call. All right.
All right, continuing with our the explanation of the pie chart you just saw. We have 10 bases, and a huge part of our expenses are related to base union representation. We have to pay back. So when your union rep is working for you, you know, at the base, we have to pay back American Airlines in pay loss for your union representation. And your union reps are there at the base to support you, answering contractual questions, attending meetings, and filing notices of dispute, really basically fighting for our members' rights. Just to give you an example, in DFW alone, they have an average of 20 meetings a day representing our members at company required meetings. So it's a huge expense.
And this chart shows all the bases, just how much it has cost to run our bases over the last 4 years.
Okay, so I get to talk about negotiations again. So where do your union dues go, especially when it comes to the NNRF, which is negotiations and negotiation related funds? And we have had enough money in this fund to fund the last 5 years of negotiations for very successful negotiations. That is why we are asking for a change in how much actually goes into that fund. But I'm going to give you some, you can read it here on the screen, but you can see where all of the money from the negotiations related fund is going to. First off, of course, it's paying for the negotiators, right? It's paying for the attorney that we had. It's also paying for the economist, Dan Akins. So our attorney was Joe Burns. It pays for Joe. It paid for Dan Akins. It pays for trainings. It paid for the contract action team. There's many more items there. I'm sure we missed some also while we were listing them out. but that fund does pay for all of negotiations and negotiation-related items. All right, so also, we have departments, many departments at APFA that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And all of those departments have representatives that answer your calls. Probably the one that most of you are familiar with is the contract scheduling desk. And the contract scheduling desk is there for you 5 days a week. And we have live chat also that answers your questions via text. And the cost of all of those representatives has gone up with this TA. We also have, of course, communications department, hotel department, safety and security, and professional standards, to name a few. We have another slide that'll show you, Josh, if we might want to go to that slide. The other departments we have: health, injury on duty, retirement. Obviously, you all know we have a lot of retirement town halls. Kim is very busy always. Government affairs and archives. So the cost of representation with this TA, with the increases that we received, all of these departments now cost us more to fund these departments. Okay, next up also is the national committees. More committees, more representation for you on your job. And of course, the negotiation committee is probably the one that everyone is the most familiar with on this slide. There's also the budget committee, the executive committee, ballot committee, and the DE&I committee. So with this dues increase, all of those representatives also. Some of these are also volunteer positions. I know the budget committee, we have a lot of volunteer positions, and DE&I, but we do have some of them funded also. So just wanted to make sure everyone realizes that with the increase to the wages, there was an increase also in the cost to fund all of these departments and committees.
Perfect. All right. Where else does our dues dollars go? Yes, APFA has a building. We spoke on some of the enhancements and changes we've made to make the workspace here more collaborative. But one of the things that we do here is our new members come to visit APFA. That is their first introduction to APFA, is here at their union hall, our union hall, and that started in 2019. With us having this building, that requires a lot of maintenance, repairs, and upkeep, and those costs go to that. We also have office equipment here, printers, and office supplies, all of the mailings. If you've ever ordered from the Solidarity Shop on APFA website, those items are mailed directly from here, from the membership department. And we have some transportation that we maintain here as well.
And the building is not new.
The building is not
So,
new.
sometimes the maintenance is, yeah.
Yeah.
We also have a IT and technology department here that upkeeps all of our resources that we have. Our representatives have, laptops and things like that. All of our emails and software that we use. And then our website that we talk about frequently because it's such a great resource. But I'm kind of biased with that. But our website development is a huge resource that we focus on, that your dues dollars go.
Even this town hall.
Even this town hall.
Before we move on, because you brought it up and because I know you like to talk about it so much, with the website, I think, when we think about all the changes we've been making to the website, trying to keep our members as up to date on what's going on as possible. That website, and when we think going back to, let's start with the strike authorization vote. We put all the information out there for that. Then we had the strike committee, right? I mean, not the strike committee, the strike center. And we put all the information we possibly could on the website to make sure everybody had all that they needed to answer any questions about it going on strike. And then there was the TA, the calculators, everything we did for that. The website And that is how many people who are working on this website, Josh? 4?
Oh, yeah,
What
it's
more than that?
only a handful of people.
Yeah.
We've got 3 and me, but I don't, I kind of just oversee things. We've got a few 2 flight attendants and a full-time staff person that works on the website. So we've done a lot with very few resources, I will say. And one of the things that I think about, most recently was the single sign-on voting. Typically in the past, we've done our voting through paper ballots. With representative elections, we still have to use paper ballots, but for anything that's not representative related, we're able to do electronic balloting. And we've been able to turn it into single sign-on voting to make it even easier. So those are some of the things that we've been able to focus on.
Okay, so I'm not going to let you get off yet. Hang on, because I still want to talk about the website just a little longer. So I am thinking about, there are 4 people working on it, but behind the scenes, there's more than that. So we have to pay for everybody, especially, I'll just bring it up, and I know, we can laugh about it now, but when we did single sign-on for the strike authorization vote, right? And everybody was sitting there ready to vote. And we thought we did everything we possibly could to make sure everybody could vote as quick as they can. And we realized, we needed more work. We tried, but there has been a year long of work on making sure single sign-on worked for the TA. And that was improvements all behind the scene that nobody sees, and nobody actually really understands how much goes into making sure that when they voted on that TA, our website didn't crash, right? That it was a secure vote. And so I just want to make sure everybody realizes how much really goes into that website, and especially single sign-on, working as well as it did for the TA vote. So.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's right. We had our own Taylor Swift moment. Ticketmaster crashed. But we learned a lot through that process, and we expanded like the server capacity, and made sure for future votes that our traffic was able to be used, and that's a whole process that we had to go through as well. So
that's what happens when you have 90% of the members eligible to vote.
That's right. Moving on to special funds.
All right, so one of the things that we've done to make sure that your dues dollars, they go in these special funds, but to better utilize them, is we've created these special funds. I'll explain a little bit about those. In the past, we budgeted for activities. If we had an election coming up or we had some meeting coming up, we would budget for that. What we changed, or your budget committee changed in 2022, is the establishment of special funds, which allows us to save for planned activities ahead of time, but also provides funds for unexpected activities that come up. For example, we are using funds we saved 2 years ago for our education and training fund. That's money that's not coming out of the annual budget, and it's there if there's some event or training that needs to be put on. Similarly, when we have some funds saved in the voting and elections fund, if there was an unexpected election that came up, we're able to fund that. This prevents an impact on services to the membership and prevents your leadership from going over budget. We have those 5 funds you'll see here on this slide.
All righty, moving along. In the fall of 2022, APFA passed a resolution to institute a legal department here at APFA. And this has saved us a tremendous amount of money. Just to give you an example, from 2002 to 2020, we spent over 13 million in legal related expenses. Now, with an in-house APFA legal counsel, we're much better equipped to use our dues much more efficiently, right? And these are, when we have APFA in-house legal counsel, these individuals know our contract, they know our organization, and they know that they have a grasp of what our needs are. In addition to our legal department, we have professionals that we talked about earlier, our IT director, data analysis, our webmaster, et cetera. And we have our clerical support staff that is assisting our members on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, Larry, let's just, if we can, the legal department consists of 2 in-house staff attorneys and a legal assistant. So those have been added to APFA in the last 3 years.
Yes.
And then I know we've also added our data analyst, our storyteller with the data, which has been another huge addition, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
so and everybody understands who those people are, how many there are.
Right, and our legal department, you know, they spend a lot of time assisting the SBA department in grievances and arbitrations. So again, that has really helped us control costs, because we know arbitrations can be very costly, and this has, you know, definitely helped us keep those costs under control.
Well, and all the individuals on this slide that we're talking about, these are all non-flight attendants. So pretty much everyone up until this point are all flight attendant representatives. And then these individuals that we're talking about are, you know, our staff that are here at APFA headquarters. So let's move on and discuss the ballot measures for you to consider. At the fall board meeting this year, we had 3 steering committees that focused on 3 separate things. The first one was management accountability. We had a committee that focused on financial reform. That's where the other 6 resolutions that we talked about earlier came out of. And then constitutional amendments. These constitutional amendments we focused on are how to restructure our dues here at APFA and other things to, you know, help our financial situation for the long term, because we want to make sure that our union is set up for success for the long term. So the first one that we're going to talk about is dues restructure, and we'll roll right into it.
All right. So what's the issue? Well, quite honestly, dues have remained the same since 2001, while our operating costs, including the cost of representation, has increased. Back in 2001, when we had the dues increase, that was because we had a successful TA and the wages increased at that time. And that's when APFA went to the membership and asked for a dues increase. And that's pretty much, you know, a big part of why we're where we're at today.
Yes, because with the TA, our hourly wage went up, and like we've explained earlier, the cost of representation has increased, and our operating costs have substantially increased as well, impacting the services APFA provides our members. So this dues restructure keeps us at the pace so we can continue to offer the services to our members.
Well, and this also isn't a unique situation to where we find ourselves today. We had a wage increase in 2015, and at that time we were still, you know, working off of dues that were put into place in 2001. We find ourselves in a situation today where with this most recent wage increase, it's just really exacerbated the situation.
And Josh, I think that that's a really good point. Obviously, in 2015, the wages went up. And I will say also with COVID, you know, it helped when we came into office, we really had to take a look at how the money was being spent and tried to figure out as best we could how to basically deal with, you know, how much money was coming into APFA. And that's why all the changes that we've made a lot of them have occurred to make sure also that we are doing everything we possibly can for our members to represent them the best we can and to be able to fight this company on, you know, on when they are violating our contract. So I think this is long overdue, but with this increase, we couldn't wait any longer.
All right, moving on to the next slide. All right, so like I indicated earlier, the steering committee at the fall board meeting reviewed a lot of different options on how to proceed forward. They considered things like a percentage of everyone's income, which is what some airline unions do, and a lot of different options, a flat rate increase. And when looking at the budgets and the long-term sustainability of a solution, the committee suggested to the board to anchor the dues to an hourly rate on the flight attendant pay scale. And that hourly rate is the 6-year flight attendant pay, which is currently $53.67 an hour. So each flight attendant, if passed, would pay $53.67 per month. And one thing I really want to highlight too is once this is set, the dues would remain aligned to that 6-year pay for perpetuity. So that would, adjust over time to ensure we're not in this financial situation again. I did add a slide that shows kind of a representation of what we were talking about a little bit ago with the increase in wages in 2014, 2015 timeframe, with the dues remaining stagnant. And you can see in this most recent, we had quite a big jump, which is great for our flight attendants' wages, and still the $41 has remained consistent.
And Josh, I'm just going to mention here, this goes back to 2014-15, right? This doesn't even go all the way back to 2001 when we had the last dues increase. That this will look different if it did go all the way back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, so the increase in wages is because of the tentative agreement. Obviously, we all fought together to make sure that we got the contract that we all earned and deserved. And listen, that was a great fight against this company. You all helped us to make that happen. But now it really, because the wages have increased, the cost of representation has gone up. And you've heard us talk about this a lot today about the cost of representation. We have to make sure this contract is implemented. We have to make sure it's administered, and we definitely have to continue to defend our contract. I think all of you know that that is so important, to make sure when you have a contract that you can defend it and make sure it's administered properly. I can tell you, we've got great reps who are doing that daily at the bases and also at headquarters, and that's what your union dollars pay for.
All right, this chart shows what the structure, if passed, would look like going forward, and the effective date of dues increases attached to the 6-year pay rate. And again, this is located on the APFA website, so don't worry about scribbling this down quickly. This is all available online.
All right, so what would happen if the due structure remained the same? I see you have me delivering the bad news here. With the continued cost of representation and fixed costs increasing, you will continue to see a reduction in services and representation. So what does that look like? That looks like reduced coverage for headquarters reps, so your contract and scheduling reps, our contract and scheduling reps. We'll see a reduced coverage there. Representatives at the base, we'll see longer response times from the departments and the bases to your emails, text messages, or other correspondence. You'll see fewer base representatives available to represent you at your meetings with management. We'll see reduced staffing and funding for any grievances and arbitrations that come up with us defending our contract, and limited development and updates to the APFA website.
Okay, what happens if the dues are restructured? Well, we want to continue and we want to improve on what we do for you, the member. And so, first and foremost, contract and scheduling definitely get a lot of the calls. We want to make sure that we can have those hours as long as we possibly can. We have reduced them recently because of the wages, and we want to get them back to what they were before the CBA. And so that would be going back to the 7 to 7 and making sure that we're there to answer your questions. One of the biggest things that we really wanted to do since we came into office is an APFA app. And we've talked about this throughout the last 4 years. One of the things we had to do first is make sure the website was up to date. And we talked about how much we do on that website. So we had to make sure that we got the website working properly first, and not just properly, but updated it to what it is today. Next is an app, and we really, really want to make sure that we get an app for all of you, hopefully in the next couple of years. Of course, we're going to stay as involved as we possibly can in the labor movement, and we want to continue to do that. That helps us, flight attendants. If we help other flight attendants in the industry, let's just talk about flight attendants first, it's going to help us in the long run. We're going to keep doing that as much as we possibly can. They were here for us and supported us during our contract fight. We will be out there helping United, Alaska, every other flight attendant union out there with their contract fight, as well as helping to get Delta finally unionized. We want to help organize them and get them unionized. We also want to make sure, and this will help us to do that, that we have, that we have everything we possibly can to fight this management team in future fights, because they will be there. We know it. And so if the dues are restructured, it will help with this long list of items that we have here displayed for you.
All righty, moving along, we have a chart here, and it highlights where does your $41 per month compare to the other airline unions. And we ran a comparison, and you can see what the biggest difference, any dues restructuring, really, we're the only, as you can see on the chart, the only union group that our members vote on a dues restructuring or a dues increase. You can see all the other unions listed there, what they pay per month versus what our proposal is. And you can see that many of the dues structures are tied to a percentage or their contractual hourly rate. So we'll go through these charts here, and it'll highlight the differences.
Hey, Larry, can you tell them okay, so you said we're one of the only unions that members actually vote on this.
Right.
Who makes the decision in the other unions?
So that is done internally by their, board of directors, or in other cases, it's an international union that decides that, and the members really have no input. It's just determined, as we know, and as we're highlighting here, as costs increase, that the dues have to keep pace with that. So we have the funds available to represent our members and fight management on issues that come up.
Well, and one of the things too that we, when we were going through and researching all of these, is we noticed most unions tie their dues to either a hourly rate. So for example, let's see, TWU is paying 2 hours at their individual hourly rate. And the other thing we noticed is some unions like APA, it's a percentage of their income. So, they do 1% of income or 1.5% during negotiations. So we had to look at a way of structuring this so that, we don't have to keep, over time, this issue is really resolved for the long term.
And the percentage is also our agents at American
Yes.
and our dispatchers at American also pay a percentage. And there are flight attendant unions that pay percentages as well.
Yeah. So we before we continue on to the next ballot measure, we received a really good question. Thanks for submitting that, Doreen. How does us making a higher hourly wage increase operating costs? And the answer really lies in how our union operates and how our flight attendant representatives are paid. So I think Eric's gonna walk through that a little bit more in depth before we continue.
Right, so first of all, your representatives are flight attendants and members. So whenever a representative is removed from the schedule, let's say to represent you at a meeting with management, then APFA has to pay the company back for the cost of that time that was lost. That's outlined in section 32 of our CBA. So you can read up on that whenever you have time. So obviously, depending on what pay rate that flight attendant representative is at, that cost is absorbed by APFA. And with the TA, we've seen a 20% increase to wages. That automatically increases the cost of representation.
Yeah.
How did I do?
That was good.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's, so when the wages increased, the cost of our representation increased.
Exactly.
And, you know, although our dues were set in 2001 at $41 an hour, even the cost outside of representation has increased too. The cost of running this building.
Yes.
The
So our
cost of
fixed
running
costs,
IT. Yeah.
just like everywhere else, the cost of our electric bill, the utilities here, our taxes, property taxes for this building, maintenance and repairs in general increase year over year.
And inflation affects the union too, even down to the, you know, the assets that APFA owns. It costs more to own those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to, thank you again for that question. We're going to move on to the second ballot measure for our members' consideration.
Yes, ballot measure number 2 is related to negotiations and negotiations related funds, which is our NNRF. And the addition of the negotiations fund changed many years ago, and it was really after the 1993 strike. And basically, currently, 25% of every dues increase goes towards the negotiations fund. So what does that mean now? Currently, $4 out of your $41 dues dollars are added to this fund.
Okay, so what is the issue? Well, the issue is if the members pass the dues restructure and the NNRF fund stays the same, then instead of the $4 going towards the fund, $7.16 will go towards that fund out of every $41, out of the new dues rate. The fund is used only for negotiations, and it would be even more inflated than it currently is. And I know we've got more on the next slides to show you how much our dues cost this last 5 years of dues negotiations. Of negotiations. And so thanks, Josh. I wanted to make sure we got that up on the slide before we go into that. So, all right. So now, currently, we have just under 13 million in the fund. And for the negotiations, this past 5 years that we spent, and 5 years is longer than normal, we spent just under $7 million, so $6,914,000 we spent for negotiations. So as you can see, we have more than enough money in the fund to cover even the next negotiations. And we can get into, I think in the next slides, we talk about, if this does not change, where we would be at. Josh, we can go to the next slide and you can start.
Can I say something really quickly,
Sure.
Julie, about on the last slide? Some of you may be wondering, like, wow, those are some really good numbers and returns, you know, to see that amount happen. We've had this fund since 1999, and it started with $900,000. And we have had a phenomenal financial advisor who manages this fund, and it does very well. I'll just say that. And that based on the investments that APFA has invested in some secure options that allow us to have our principal very rarely touched throughout even negotiations. Yeah. So that creates the stability in the fund. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
And Julie touched on this fund is adequately sized right now to fund even the next negotiations. But now that we've completed these negotiations and we have a new CBA, you know, the way that this fund is structured right now, over the next 5 years, if there's no change, we will continue contributing to this NNRF. And I think we're going to walk a little bit through what the impact of that looks like. Sorry. Where is that?
Okay, right. Josh, I think this is, hang on one second. There we go. All right. Is this me, Josh? Sorry, I think I've lost.
Yep.
I've lost the slide in my deck.
Yeah. So Julie, what happens if the NNRF funding structure remains the same?
I got it. You know, this is why I usually am at APFA when I do these town halls. It's a little bit easier. Sorry, I got a few screens in front of me. All right. So if everything stays the same, by the next time we start the next negotiations in 5 years, we would have about $18.5 million in the fund at least, right? Eric talked about how great our financial advisor is and what a good job she does for us. So we could have more than that also. These negotiations, we spent $6.9 million over 5 years. So we have we could have 3 times the amount of the cost of negotiations in that fund. If the dues restructure passes and this measure does not pass, then we would be adding an additional $12 million to the fund, bringing us close to $25 million. So this is really a necessary change, as well as when you think about it, you know, it's great to have this fund, but at the end of the day, we'd rather have these resources going towards helping you on a day-to-day basis with your everyday needs. And that's what really this ballot measure is about, making sure we have enough money in the fund for the next negotiations, but making sure that fund isn't overinflated and we don't have too much money in it, that money we could be spending on our members on a day-to-day basis, helping them with their everyday needs.
So what does that solution look like?
Did we talk about what is the solution?
Yeah, this is it.
Okay, so the solution would be to implement a floor and ceiling parameter to the NNRF. And to add to what Julie said about the it being too inflated, as well as us doing really well with the investment, we put in about $1 million, a little over $1 million per year into the fund. So that's adding even more into it. But the solution would be to implement a floor and ceiling parameter for the NNRF to ensure negotiations are sufficiently funded and to provide more services to the members. And this is not an attempt at all to deplete the NNRF, but rather better utilize the dues to benefit the membership. Because again, this is your union dues, your dues dollars, and it should be benefiting you. What will this proposed change look like? Well, first, the floor and ceiling will be established by the board of directors, and they'll utilize guidance from our financial advisors, any economists, and they'll take into account the number of members we have at the time. When the NNRF reaches that ceiling, the contributions will pause and will redirect those contributions to the general budget, which will expand our services to you, the members. Once we begin spending in that NNRF, then we will resume contributing when the fund drops to the minimum level or at the start of a new negotiation cycle. So when we open up for the next negotiations, or if the fund drops to that minimum level, then we'll again begin contributing to the NNRF.
Yeah, that's good. All right.
I think.
Yeah, so we touched on this. Essentially, this change will ensure that we really hit the sweet spot on how much to maintain in that fund. And really that makes sure that we have enough funding for negotiations for the long term, while also ensuring, you know, it's not overinflated and we're using those funds appropriately for representation going forward. All right, so our last and third initiative for our members' consideration.
Yes, so an annual dues payment incentive is another measure you'll be voting on. In addition to the benefit of expanding services to the members with a dues restructure, would be an incentive if you pay those dues in advance for the year. This would allow members to remain in good standing while on any leaves, or any members who may fly low time during certain times of the year and may not have enough money in their paycheck for dues to come out. Then this would allow you to be able to vote, run for or be appointed to any position, attend union meetings, access the members only section of the APFA website, and not have to worry about it. This will also prevent the number of arrears we've seen in the past, as well as the collections activity that goes into getting those arrears paid up. The due date and discount details will be communicated to the members in a prepayment window. So you will know what time, what dates, and how much the discount would be prior to that deadline happening. Then you could take advantage of that discount by paying your dues up front.
So those are the three ballot measures for our members' consideration for you to consider. We're going to go into the timeline next for what voting looks like. But before I do that, I just really want to underscore the critical importance that these votes mean to all of you. The long-term sustainability of our union is something that we've really looked really hard at as a administration, and ensure that we're set up for the long term. And that's why we're having these discussions. They are hard discussions to have, but they're necessary. All right, so today the website will be launching after the town hall is over. We have our call center that is opening first thing tomorrow morning. If you have any questions, feel free to call the call center, and they'll be available to have discussions with you over all of these ballot measures. We have booklets that are being mailed out to all of your addresses. All 28,000 members will receive a booklet in the mail that further details these ballot measures and things that we covered in today's presentation. It's a lot of the same information that's located on the website as well. Voting will open on December 17th at noon and will conclude on January 16th, 30 days later at noon. And during the voting period, we will have volunteers in the terminal that will be available to answer questions, direct you to voting, and help you with getting online and any questions that you may have regarding this. And then, as we indicated earlier, the effective date of the dues restructure would be on January 30th.
Josh, did you mention how they will vote?
I did, and I'm glad to mention it again. You will be voting online at apfa.org/dues. It is single sign-on voting, and it'll open on December 17th, and you'll be able to log in and click one button, and it'll take you to your ballot. All right, feel free to take a screenshot of this. It's going to be December 17th to January 16th. As a reminder, we have booklets that are in the mail. The full booklet can be viewed already online at apfa.org/dues. We'll have the website live shortly. And our call center is 806-334-DUES, 806-334-3837. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. All right, any parting thoughts?
I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I know this has been a over an hour presentation, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions that people still have. We will make sure, Josh said we have a call center. I want you to realize those are definitely flight attendants who will be answering your questions at the call center. The booklet will be in the mail in about a week or so, and that will help answer a lot of questions. We really want to make sure that you have as much information as you possibly can before you make your vote. I know that sometimes, quickly you might make a decision in your mind about what you want to do, but please take a look at all the information we are presenting in this town hall, the booklet, the call center. Use our resources and make sure that when you do place that vote, it is an informed vote. And because, yes, the future of this union does depend on it.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. I would sorry, Josh. Just wanted to thank everyone and remind them, if you have coworkers that miss this town hall, Josh, we'll have it available on the website, right? So they can replay it.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So as Julie said, please take the time to educate yourself and be informed. Again, we have the booklet, we have the website, and you certainly can reach out to the call center. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you for being on today. We'll have this recording out shortly, and fly safely.
Fly safely.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Thanks.
Thanksgiving.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving.